עיר המחלות, אסיין אל חכרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מהם אדוני, עושה שמיים וארץ. אל ייתן למוט רגלך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן, שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני הצילך, עליית ימינך, יומם כשמש לא יככם, וירח בלילה, אדוני שמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם.
Kol omer kra, va'amar ma'ekra, kol habasar chatzir, v'chol chasto ketzitz hasadeh, yavesh chatzir novel tzitz ki ruach Adonai nashva bo. Achein chatzir ha'am, yavesh chatzir novel tzitz, udevar Eloheinu yakum leolam. A voice says, cry out. But I ask, what shall I cry? All flesh is like grass. All of its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, and the flower fades, when a wind from God blows upon it. Surely, therefore, people are like grass. The grass withers, and the flower fades, but the word of God endures forever. LeDavid mizmor ladonai haaretz umloa tevel v'yoshveva ki hu al yamim yesada v'al nehorot yichaneha. Mi ya'aleh bahar Adonai, umi yakum bimkom kadsho, neki chapayim uvar levav, asher lo nasa lashav nafshi v'lo nishba lamirma. The earth is the Lord's, with all of its fullness. The world is the Lord's, with all of its inhabitants. Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in the holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart. He will receive a blessing from the Lord and a just reward from the God of deliverance. In thinking the few days, I remember something that happened to me on the playground when my son was 6 or 7 years old. There was a young lady about 12 years old, saw me on the playground with my son. As I said, he was a little boy on the swings, a public park, and she was looking at me. I could tell she knew I was somebody she recognized, but I was out of context. She didn't know exactly, but she knew. She kept looking at me and smiling, but we kept a distance. And then all of a sudden, as if a light bulb went off in her head, with recognition in her eyes, and really a sense of affection on her face, she comes running over and she says, I know who you are. You're my orthodontist. I remember her saying that. Honest to God truth. Maybe she thought I was your dad. I don't know. But I realized what had happened. Of course, she was mistaken. But she knew I was somebody that she trusted. You know, she knew that I was somebody that she had depended on and had come through for her. And so this girl, 12 years old, had that kind of feeling. Of course, I thought it was for me. It was really for her orthodontist. But I recognize the feeling that your father must have had on so many occasions. As people recognized him, the familiarity, and the feeling that, hey, you depended on me and I came through for you. Everyone greeted your father with a smile. It was a smile that he helped to give them in some cases, but it was a smile. Everybody loved engaging with him. He could speak to anyone, and he would share his warmth and his charm with other people. Personable and kind and classy and interactive. He loved people. He enjoyed being with people. He cared about his patients. He was always asking how you're doing. He not only touched many lives, he touched many generations of lives in the community, and people never forgot him. But even the most personable individual needs a partner who can make him even more fully come alive, and your mother was that partner, clearly. They were an incredible pair, a matched couple. Not because they were identical, but because they respected and were drawn to each other's qualities. And they overlapped in their hunger to explore the world, to experience the world, and to experience each other on a daily basis. The world wanted to spend time with them, and yet they were always happy spending time with each other. They consumed the world. They loved to travel. They enjoyed going out and being with friends. They loved eating at restaurants, which meant that you grew to love eating at restaurants, and you did it many nights a week. Your parents were the life of the party, and your father's happiest times were often making plans with Judy, making plans with your mom to go on trips or going out, organizing trips. Honestly, how lucky you two were to have as a model two people so dedicated to each other. Because I'll tell you, you can't really learn love out of a dictionary. You can't. You can't learn loyalty and devotion by memorizing the definition off of a whiteboard from a lecture. You learn it day after day because you observe it. You observe it in your home and close by. And you learned it really even after your mother died, because I know your father always wanted to keep his home and to live in that home because she was in that home. Her style was in that home. Her taste was in that home. Her love of art and love of life was in that home. She was the essence in that home. And even as he tried to move forward in life, he needed that at home. He needed her at home. I know, Robin, you asked your mom, what led to their courtship, what led to their marriage, why were they able to achieve this? And it was difficult for your mom to break it into subtext. I loved him. That was her answer to you. I loved him. Almost an all-encompassing feeling that they were there to comfort each other and to support each other and to experience life with each other. Even when he moved to France, right, and served our country for a couple of years, and they had been seeing each other, and she then moved to New York, because if he's moving to France, I'm breaking up with you, fella, and I'm going. If you're moving to France, I'm moving to New York. But he won her back. He flew from France to New York and won her back. Why? It's her quote, because I loved him. I loved him. He was raised by his own mother and father. His mother was especially close to him. He grew up and learned Judaism in a traditional family. He was in the first class of Hebrew Academy. Grew up as one of two children with Marcia as a sister. I know that he enjoyed coming to services during those years he did with you, Robin. It was clear that he knew the service. He had connection to the service. Whatever talk I gave, he sometimes agreed with it, but he always talked about it with me. I mean, we engaged in dialogue. It was always warm. It was always cordial. And I know it was something you shared with him, very special. He may have liked all kinds of people, but Leslie, I understand he didn't like your parakeet, right? The parakeet made a lot of noise. He didn't like it. And when you were younger, you hated his new computer. That I understand. But you remember him loving those family vacations and just loving the fact that he gave everyone such a beautiful smile, including you. I know, Robin, when we spoke, you made a comment about your dad at a certain point wanting to build his resume. And I thought about how we all develop a career resume. We present ourselves in a resume, a certain format, a written biography. We describe ourselves through facts of our lives or where we studied and what degrees, but some people's lives cannot be fully expressed in a document. Your mom and your dad had a certain magic that couldn't be found in a classic resume. And I think your dad knew that his most important resume was not the one that said career on it, but it was the one that said Judy on it and Robin and Leslie on it. That was the resume that he was so proud of. And that was where his true satisfaction came from. And among other things, he gave you a life philosophy that he lived by, and what became even more important after your mom had passed. Because I know he wasn't quite ever the same after Judy died, and That color that she brought into his life was now gone, but I know he said to you, a person has to choose to be happy. A person has to choose to be happy. You have to make the choice to say, hey, I'm going to create the happiness that I need in life. And that's how he lived, and that's how he moved forward. He made the decision. Living is not just biology, it's a mindset, and he wanted to still live. And so your dad moved forward. He remained active. Obviously, the surgery, the knee surgery 6 years ago slowed him down, and then in these last 8 or 9 months, he became even more vulnerable. But you were there to support him. You remained supportive of him. I know, Robin, you moved in with him with great care, and you found great meaning in caring for your dad and showing him every day that spiritual bond that you always felt. He lives on in children's smiles and in the smiles of children who are now adults and who are now parents and who are now grandparents. He lived with a good name, and he died with a good name. Robin, if you want to come up.
Well, I do want to make a quick comment. Rabbi Scoff. Pretty much everywhere I went with my father, someone did recognize him as their orthodontist, or their children's orthodontist, or their grandchildren's orthodontist, but never as their rabbi. So, I'm very impressed. Now, I would like to say a few words to my father. And I'm glad that you're all here for this, to honor him. To my father, mentor, confidant, director general, financial advisor, sommelier, and travel agent, I bid you au revoir and safe passage. But if you want to mind sticking around for just a few minutes, I've got a few things to say. Now, when I sat down to craft my thoughts, I started organizing chronologically, as we often do for birthdays or, unfortunately, addressing our loved ones when they go away. But I realized pretty quickly that linear reflection wasn't going to work. Life drives on one year to the next, but it's lived organically. It evolves like a tapestry. Adventures, friendships, family, love, they weave together. We weave together. Photos and memories blend. They grow funnier, more celebrated. They take on a life of their own, become iconic. The white sunglasses and jacket. The trip to Princeton. Zoe. And just a side note, on behalf of Zoe and the 1989 Vail Chair Squad, I would like to say, Dad, I feel like we could have worked out a different arrangement for me to get a new dog. Just saying. So while revisiting anecdotes, I realized this bon voyage is about honoring the icon who infused these memories with a life of their own, made them iconic, and invited all of us to grow the celebration. You are an icon, Dad, a bard for our era. You captured a room, any space, like an airplane row. Passively brilliant, you had answers and follow-up explanations to every question about everything, ever. Ceaselessly surprising. How many times did you hear, "How do you know that?" and shrug, Like telling me Vladivostok was near the Korean border when I was planning to move there, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Yeah, everyone knows that. Or like knowing Vladivostok was the most normal thing in the world. And you've given me the world. Your love of travel was infectious. That and when you were planning one of your trips to Paris for you and Mom, and I said, I want to go. You said, well, then you better get a job that'll take you there. Which I wonder if you reflected on when I was on my way to Afghanistan for a grant to build, a school. I can't do an overview of all your years of travel. They're far too vast. But if there are stories to tell, they do lurk in the smiles and smirks and shared memories among the people here to honor you. Most of whom I'm trying not to look at for fear I'll get weepy and my nose will run and I'll have to do square breathing to regain my composure, and we will be here forever because I won't hand off my words. I'm sorry. So Rabbi Scoff asked me to describe why we meshed, what we had in common, what was so special about our relationship, and I didn't have a good answer. I said we were both strong-willed. Only because I want and you can't have, it struck me as an unremitting battle of wills. Which, P.S., if the white sunglasses and jacket are any indication, I feel like I won a fair amount of the time. But I didn't have a real answer for Rabbi Scoff. How do I describe square breathing? How do I describe your wonder? My awe at being your daughter. A friend of yours said to me, now that your father is gone, it's like your mother is too. She was still there through him. And Mom was. Together, you consumed life. Your magnetism drew people to the two of you. Everyone wanted to be in your orbit. We still do. Here. When friends celebrated your 80th birthday, they honored Mom along with you. And so many people wrote, I can't write about your father without celebrating your mother. The two of you are interwoven. Your friend said she still thinks about Mom every day, as did you, as do I. Mom was home to you. As Rabbi Scoff mentioned, my father couldn't leave their home because it embodied my mother. Her art, she was an artist. Her art was everywhere. And the home was actually designed around her art. The great room in the home was crafted around her incredible piece of art. She was home to him, wherever he was in the world. Wherever you were in the world, Dad, wherever you were, Paris, she was home to you. You came home directly to her in New York. You're going home now, Dad. Give Mom a big hug and kiss from me and Leslie. Tell her we're okay. We love you, and we miss you both very much. But we take comfort in the celebration of your reunion.
we're going to add just a few comments that have been passed along from family and friends. He was curious, always had a thirst for more, with a glass of white wine with ice in his hand. He was always evolving, yet stable, a rock, everyone's rock. He provided stability for everyone. He was always the steady one for friends and family alike. They were so strong together because they had a good marriage. Your parents were my island in the storm. They were solid, listened, safe. They were a unit. They loved being with each other. Dinner, travel. They never ran out of things to say or being excited to see each other after being apart. He was a brilliant man. He had an encyclopedic knowledge, but he didn't throw it at anyone. He was a great father. He loved you deeply and completely. He was devoted to you. From his disappearing acts from stores you were shopping in, to staying up all night when he knew you were flying on dubious airlines. He was a man's man and a woman's man. Everyone loved him. Always interested in others, love of others. Always asked about others' families, how their kids are doing, grandkids. He hated golf but wanted to be with his friends. He hated the sport but loved the camaraderie and cocktails. It was the same with skiing. Camaraderie was his love, not boating. Touched others, reached so many people. And then finally, everywhere we went, even out of town sometimes, we ran into a former patient, right up until the end. One of his home care telehealth nurses was a patient from Southgate. She asked, "Is your father an orthodontist?" "Yes," I said. "He was my orthodontist." Back and forth to determine where. Then so many well wishes and great sadness when she handed her oversight off to hospice. Thank you. This is a variety of different contributions to the words. Please rise, everybody, for the memorial prayer. Sanford Shifrin.
Hail, Malei Rachamim, Shochayim Hamramim, Hametz Haimanu Hanechono, Tachat Kanefei Vashchina, B'mahalot Kedoshim Adgorim, Kezogar Garakia Mazgerim, Et Nishmat Sanford Shifrin, Shagalach Leolamo, Began Eden Techei Menuchatol, Anabaval Rachamim, Astireihu Beseter Knafecha Leholamim, Vetitzror Bitzror Chaim Et Nishmatol, Adonai Gunachalatol, Vayanugak Beshalom Ale Mishkavo, Venamar Amen.
May we remember all of the worthy and the righteous deeds that he performed while in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. God is now his portion. May he rest in peace. And we all say amen.
Amen.
Let's be seated. We want to offer our condolences to Robin and to Leslie and Justin and the entire family. We want to note that the family will be receiving friends following the burial portion of the service. They'll be receiving friends, and the address today is at Barrington Clubhouse, 350 North Aurora Road in Aurora. Again, Barrington Clubhouse, 350 North Aurora Road in Aurora, today until 5 p.m. On Sunday, the family will receive friends at 195 Brighton Drive, 195 Brighton Drive, again in Aurora, and on Sunday, visitation will be 1 p.m. till 5 p.m. Today until 5, Sunday 1 till 5, and note different addresses between today and Sunday. We're going to pause now to give us time to arrange the processional for the burial portion of the service, where we will complete the service. Please remain in your seats for another moment or two. The pallbearers, however, should now come forward. David Adonai mi agur bi'alacha mi yishkon b'har kadshecha olech tamim v'chual tzedek v'dover emet b'elvavo lo ragal al lishono lo asa l'reihu ra'a v'cherpal lo nasa al krovo nivzeh be'inav nimas ve'irei Adonai yechabed nishma lo hara v'lo yamir chasbo lo natan b'neshef v'shofar al nakiv lo lakach v'se'ela lo yinot li'olam.